Hello everyone. Today I want to share Genesis chapter. In Genesis chapter 46, Jacob moved from Hebron, Beersheba, and Goshen. And then the Goshen, uh, this is a zoom in version of the map. And then here, as Joseph planned, Jacob and his family got Pharaoh's permission to live in Ramses, Goshen. It is the best place in Goshen. And then, as you know, as Joseph interpreted the Pharaoh's dream, there were plenty for 7 years, and then there were famine for 7 years. So here, maybe people would get happier and happier for 7 years plenty because they did not know the coming of a 7 years famine. So for them, they just would think they become rich and rich and rich and rich, right? And they never imagined that there would be another dramatic disaster like a famine after 7 years. Anyway, they didn't know the future. They just get happier and happier. However, after 7 years of plenty, the famine comes and then it got worse and worse. That's why people say like this. And when that year was ended, they came to him the following year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord that our money is all spent. The herds of the livestock are my lord's. There's nothing left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we with our land will be servant to the Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate." So here they had nothing to sell anymore for their food. So they said, "Our body on our land, I will be the Pharaoh's servant. I will give the land, our land to the Pharaoh, just to give us the food." So it means that the famine really get worse and worse. So chapter 46 was the second year of the famine, and it was get worse. But for 7 years, of course, it got worse and worse. So people would get hopeless and hopeless for 7 years of the famine because they did not know when the famine would finish. If they knew that for if they endure for 7 years, the famine will finish. Maybe they can be hopeful. However, they do not know when the famine will finish, but get worse and worse, and then no more things to sell. How they feel, they get hopeless and hopeless. However, I want to tell you about our lives ups and downs. Many things are out of control, right? If we are farmer, we may increase the amount of the harvest by our skills or experience, but cannot control the weather. Though we have very good farming skills and we have a long experience, but we cannot control the weather, the typhoon, the rains, right? And then the earthquake, the famine, we cannot control that. Regardless of our uncontrollable ups and downs, we should pray for our emotional balance because our ups will not last long forever as our downs will. So like the fa- uh, famine, the pandemic is really out of control. Though we have a skill, though we have a long experience, who imagined the pandemic will come like this? We never, no one imagined the impact of the pandemic like this. So pandemic is a one kind of uncontrollable. So, and then even during the pandemic, there are people who are ups and downs. So we have to know that we are not sure when the pandemic will finish, but it will not last forever. So we want to think about emotional balance. There are no everlasting ups. You know, the plenty for 7 years, but it finished. There are no everlasting ups. Thus, we should pray to be humble in our ups. When we are successful, when we achieve a lot of things, we should remember that our ups will not last forever. That's why we should pray to be humble. By our strength, we cannot be humble. That's why we have to pray when we are ups. And then it is also true, there are no everlasting downs. Someone always fade and fade and fail. No, our failure is everlasting downs. No. Also, we should pray to be hopeful in our downs. Though we continually fail, though we struggle many challenges, we suffer from many hardship, there is the end of our down. There are no everlasting downs. So in any downs, we should pray to be hopeful. By our strength, we cannot be hopeful in many downs. That's why we have to pray. The reason is this one: the Lord is my shepherd. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So here, we have to know that the valley of shadow of death. Can you imagine that you are in the valley of shadow of death? Is it peaceful? Is it wonderful, beautiful? No, not at all. It is very terrible. Maybe we are overwhelmed by the fear, right? There are many dangerous, many risky the situation. So we are in danger if we are in valley of shadow of death. Emotionally, we are very fearful. However, the Psalm says that I will fear no evil, right? It is a future sentence. If God is with me, I will fear no evil because God is with me. I will not fear anymore because God is with me. God's rod and the staff comfort me. So when we are in hardship, emotionally we will struggle. And then only God can comfort us because he is our shepherd. This is the reason for our emotional balance. When we are ups, we should be humble. When we are downs, we should be hopeful. But we cannot do it by our strength. That's why we have to pray. Because the Lord is my shepherd. He will strengthen us to maintain our emotional balance. And then this part is very important. Genesis 47, verse 27. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained a possession in it and were fruitful and multiplied greatly. Do you remember that Genesis 46, 3, it says that God told Jacob like this, do not fear, go to the Egypt, you go there. I will make you into a great nation. He promised in Genesis chapter 46, verse 3. And then today in Genesis 47, 27, it shows that the Israel settled in the Egypt, right? And they become fruitful and multiply greatly. We have to know that they also go through the famine, right? So if there was a famine, maybe many people would die out of hunger. However, in those situations, God made them fruitful and multiply greatly. It means that regardless of the situation, regardless of circumstance, even in the impossible situation, God kept his promise. That's why it is a miracle. God make them fruitful and multiply greatly because God promised Jacob that I will make you into a great nation. So let's think about it. After plenty for 7 years, the famine came. So all the people get influenced. The famine affected many people. And Jacob also sent his sons to get the food. That is only what he wanted. But because of the famine, Jacob can meet the Joseph. So Jacob came to the Goshen when he was 130 years old. And then at that time, because of the famine, he sent his son to the Jacob and the Egypt, and then he can move, he could meet Joseph. And then now he became 147 years old. So Jacob told Joseph to bury him with his father. So for 17 years, he was in Goshen. Here, what I want to think is the famine was not good situation, but Jacob met Joseph there, right? And he survived. We want to think about this one. Sometimes our ups and downs came together. Sometimes we are ups and sometimes we are down. But sometimes, of course, it comes together. For example, Jacob, famine was one of downs, right? Severe downs. But meeting Joseph was the greatest for Jacob. You can imagine that he could meet his favorite sons when he was 130 years old. So is it great ups? When he was in down, he found the great ups. The surviving from famine, and this is one of the ups, because many people would die out of hunger, though it is also one of the downs compared to the plenty years. But can you say that our downs is better for us, our ups are good for us? No. In the case of Jacob, because of his downs, he could get his up, meeting Joseph, right? With the plenty years was good, right? But without the famine, maybe Jacob could not meet Joseph. So ups and downs comes in together. When we are ups, we can give thanks to God because we have those happy memories to recall them during our downs, right? So when we are up, we have many good memory, achievement. Because of that happiness, we can recall them and think that when, oh, yes, I experienced how God made my ups. So now I will endure. That is what we can use when we are in downs. And then when we are in downs, we can give thanks to God. Why? We are going through them by God's grace, though the course was very tough and painful. Famine is not blessing, but because of that famine, Jacob could meet Joseph. So the famine was very tough and painful. Until he met the Joseph, it was very tough and painful. However, by God's grace, he could meet Joseph. So when we are down, we can give thanks to God. When we are ups, we can give thanks to God. Let's give thanks to God who holds us with his mighty hands to make us well in the course of our ups and downs. Regardless of ups and downs, God can keep his promise. So ups and downs, but do not worry. We have to give thanks to God because he will make us well and go through all our ups and downs. So emotional balance. Though we are ups, we should be humble. Though we are in downs, we should be hopeful. We have to maintain our emotional balance, and then we have to give thanks to God. Because the Lord is my shepherd, he will protect us. He will comfort us with his rod and staff. Though we walk through the valley of shadow of death. Even the pandemic, we do not know when the pandemic will end. And then we do not know how much more the pandemic make us suffer. However, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will not fear the pandemic anymore. For our God is with us. When we suffer emotionally, God will comfort us. When we suffer physically, God will heal us. Emotional balance, that is what we need. And through emotional balance, we can give thanks to God in any situation. God bless you.